Please welcome Executive Director of Welcoming America, Rachel PERIC.
Hi, my name is Rachel PERIC, and I'm the Executive Director of Welcoming America, an organization that works to support leaders in the creation of inclusive communities where everyone, including immigrants and refugees, can thrive, belong, and prosper. And it's really my great pleasure to be with you today, albeit virtually, to celebrate the announcement of the Kansas City Welcoming Plan. And to have been with you along the way in supporting the incredible leaders in Kansas City who have made this plan possible and who I know will be working with great excitement and effort to continue the work that's laid out in this plan. And I want to begin just by thanking a few of the leaders who I know have been particular champions of this work, including the Reach Healthcare Foundation and Carla Gibson and Brenda Sharp in particular. I want to thank the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce and Greg VALDOVINO. I want to thank Vibrant Health, communities concerned with immigrants and refugees, and Shabir advisors, especially Andrea Perdomo Morales and Manaj Shabir. Most of all, I want to congratulate you in this vision of building a more inclusive community and recognize that these are not words that are just speaking to the values that you uphold, but really deliberate actions that you're taking to move the community toward a vision that everyone can see themselves as part of, including folks who have moved to the community from other places around the world. We know that that deliberate action is what makes the difference between communities that simply see their diversity as a fact and those that recognize it as an asset to be capitalized on, embraced, supported, as fundamental to building a stronger multiracial democracy, to building strong economies, to building more healthy communities and a stronger civic life. And the set of deliberate actions that this plan encompasses of reducing the barriers that folks face to being full participants socially, civically, and economically, and creating a culture in which everyone can belong is fundamental to being the best city that Kansas City can be. One of the things that we know is emerging from the world of corporate America and workplaces is the fundamental role that belonging plays. We know through data from the Harvard Business Review and many other places that belonging is foundational to a corporate environment and a workplace where individuals can bring their full identities, full selves, and be shapers of that workplace setting, and leads to higher job performance, leads to better employee scores of their companies that they work for. And the same is true for communities. To be a city, to be a town that attracts and retains people and ensures that everyone can put down roots and thrives, that city needs to invest in the act of belonging, needs to invest in making sure that every resident has a voice, can contribute that voice, and that voice is listened to and is informing the future of that community. And we know that this work is not just an outlier, but really the core of what many communities are investing in right now so that they can seize upon the greatest asset to their economic and civic health. Over the last decade, Welcoming America has supported more than 200 communities around the country and increasingly around the world to do the work of creating a deliberately inclusive environment. More than 60 of them have now gone on to create their own plans, and many of those places have also built the infrastructure both inside of and outside of local government to hold themselves accountable to the things that they identified in those plans and in their own visions. And Welcoming America is here as a resource to support communities along that journey and also to certify places that meet the highest standard for welcoming. And we hope that Kansas City will be among the places that become certified in the future. We also know that places from Dayton, Ohio to Dallas, Texas have not only done the work of building a more inclusive environment, but are reaping the results. In the case of Dayton, reversing more than 50 years of population decline. And in the case of Dallas, creating an environment where residents themselves say that they truly do belong and feel valued. We also know that, like many cities, immigrant inclusion is situated in a larger context and a larger history of segregation, of racism, and of the exclusion of Black residents and many other people of color from the opportunities that exist for mobility and for participation. And my hope is that the Welcoming Plan is but one star in a broader constellation of efforts to support racial equity and truly build a Kansas City that works for everyone. I hope that by bringing together key leaders in the region to look deeply at the demographics and changing demographics of the city, to better understand the implications of those changes and identify priorities that are meaningful for the people that call Kansas City home, that the city is setting itself on a path to becoming a place where everyone can belong and can thrive. And I look forward to learning from you, to learning from the ingenuity and innovation that I know that you'll bring to this work, and to continuing to support your efforts. On behalf of Welcoming America, congratulations again to all of those who were involved in this work. We look forward to celebrating your success and supporting your continued efforts. Thank you.
Please welcome President and CEO of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, Joe Reardon.
Good morning. A year and a half of work comes to fruition today. The Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce is proud and honored to partner with Welcoming America and Reach Healthcare Foundation to lead the charge in making Kansas City a more welcoming city. So why does a business organization like the Chamber believe it's important that our city and region be a welcoming community? Because there is a strong business case for being welcoming and inclusive. Study after study shows that cities with greater inclusion experience greater growth in employment and economic output than their less inclusive counterparts. In fact, according to the New American Economy, immigrants are 37% more likely to start a business than native-born. Bringing it closer to home, immigrants in Kansas City contribute $8.6 billion to our GDP, while paying nearly $309 million in state and local taxes. Before the pandemic, there was a workforce shortage in Kansas City. In Kansas City, 71% of our foreign-born are over the age of 16 or are looking for work. In education, 15.7% of our immigrant population have advanced degrees, 5.1% are business and finance professionals, and 8.2% are health professionals. Speaking of health professionals, immigrants played a crucial role during the COVID pandemic. And let's not forget essential workers in restaurants, schools, as well as in construction. The data is clear. Immigrants make our communities better, and by welcoming them, Kansas City will be better as well. But Welcoming KC is a plan to welcome everyone, from the young family moving to Kansas City from a nearby city or town, to the young worker supporting his family from afar, to the international student enrolled at one of our fine local education institutions. Kansas City can be a serious contender in the competitive global market, but we have to embrace everyone who wants to call Kansas City home. Join us, Kansas City, and let's make Greater Kansas City welcoming to all.
Please welcome Brenda Sharp, President and CEO of the Reach Healthcare Foundation.
Greetings, everyone. I'm delighted to see so many people join us today for this special Welcoming KC launch event. The Reach Foundation is excited to see the Welcoming KC plan come to fruition. It is the result of almost 2 years of community conversation and engagement on what we can and should do as a region to make our Kansas City metro area more inclusive and welcoming to immigrants and refugees and other newcomers. The Welcoming KC plan started as an idea brought to Reach by our local partners who work to provide health and social and economic supports to immigrants and refugees, and by Welcoming America, which introduced KC to a movement happening across the country to remove barriers that keep some community members on the fringes of their cities and towns. For the past 5 years, the Reach Foundation has made healthcare coverage and access for immigrants and refugees in the Kansas City region a focal area in our strategic plan. Our goal to reduce regional rates of healthcare uninsurance and our civic engagement work has shown us that we cannot ignore this important population. In fact, we can only thrive as a region when we address the health and socioeconomic well-being of all of our community members, especially today as we grapple with the pandemic and the economic fallout of the health crisis. We need everyone to be safe, healthy, and part of the region's recovery. Our goal in improving health and healthcare access for all of our community members cannot be achieved without addressing the health and well-being of newcomers. They bring a cultural richness, new ideas and perspectives, and significant contributions to our economy in terms of new businesses and skilled workforce. When our local partners in Welcoming America brought this regional concept to us, it was a natural area for us to invest. Thank you to the Greater Kansas City Chamber for helping champion this work and for working to make sure a widely diverse group of people could be involved. Thank you to the chairs and steering committee who kept the momentum going, particularly in this challenging year. And I especially want to thank Greg VALDOVINO with the Chamber and Carla Gibson, Vice President of Programs here at REACH, for their unfailing focus and leadership on this effort. We are all looking forward to the next phase of putting this plan into action.
Please welcome Welcoming KC co-chairs Greg VALDOVINO, Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and Manaz Shabir, President of Shabir Advisors.
Good morning. I'm Greg VALDOVINO, Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at the KC Chamber and co-chair for Welcoming KC. For 2 years, the KC Chamber and our partners at Welcoming America convened a group of amazing people from 40 different organizations to provide direct feedback, shape, draft, and finalize the strategies laid out in the Welcoming Plan. The plan has been informed by input from community leaders, government officials, community members directly impacted by the plan, and the public at large. Without their participation, the plan would not be possible. Thank you to the leadership team that consisted of staff from Welcoming America, REACH Healthcare Foundation, and citizens concerned for immigrants and refugees. And of course, to my co-chair, Manaz Shabir of Shabir Advisors. The leadership team led by Molly Hillegas and Melissa Bertolo led our team meetings and guided our journey to convene the steering committee and provide direction to the working groups. More information on the working groups and the 6 framework areas, my co-chair, Manaz Shabir.
Thank you, Greg. And it's been wonderful working with the co-chairs of the 6 framework areas. All the working group chairs can be found in the event program as well as the Welcoming Plan. The Welcoming Plan consists of 6 framework areas: civic engagement, connected communities, economic development, education, equitable access, government leadership, and safe communities. Individuals from the steering committee also led as chairs and co-chairs for the working groups. Each group was asked to do a SWOT analysis, identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, conducted focus groups, and made the recommendations that form the goals and strategies that make up the Welcoming Plan for the Greater Kansas City area. Thank you for your work commitment and hours of dedication you all put into the plan. But our work is not done yet. We will continue to look to you to implement the work to help our immigrants and refugees who have made Greater Kansas City their home and to attract future residents to our area.
In 1976, my family migrated to Kansas City, Kansas from Mexico. That same year, El Centro, Inc. opened its doors to provide social services to the underserved populations and families. We were one of those families. I did not know then that El Centro would play a crucial role in my life. During my college years, I volunteered as a student teacher. A few years later, I became part of the staff as a director of youth programs, and today I serve on their board of directors. El Centro, like all of our partners, plays an important part in the lives of Kansas Cityans, both immigrant and natives alike. So it is my honor to introduce today's moderator, Irene Caudillo, President and CEO of El Centro. But before we meet our panel, let us look at the many faces of our diverse communities.
As former President Reagan said, we are a nation forever young, forever bursting with energy and new ideas. We feel that right here in Greater Kansas City, where Midwestern values meet an innovative spirit. welcoming people from all over and embracing what they have to offer. Welcoming KC knows we are a better community when we make everyone feel like they belong. All people, including immigrants and refugees, are valued members of our Kansas City community, vital to the success of our shared future. When we welcome new neighbors to KC, we are securing that future through prosperity as people are able to reach their full potential and contribute to our economy by opening new businesses and growing our workforce. New businesses that bring new innovations, new resources, and new ideas. And soon, those new faces feel like old friends. Whether it's a home in the suburbs, a small town, or right next door, KC is better when we can say, "Welcome home."
Please welcome the president and CEO of El Centro, Irene Caudillo.
What a wonderful introduction to our panel. It is a pleasure to be here today as I moderate some great stories and great opportunities for you to really get to know those who are in Kansas City, that of the faces you just saw. So for all of you in the audience, you can participate. So what I'll ask you to do is to please, during our first session, please ask any questions you might have and put them in the chat box, and we'll get to them right after a short discussion amongst the panelists. So let me get right to it. I want to welcome our panelists. And first, Ramin Sharifat is CEO of McGowan Gordon Construction. Welcome, Ramin.
Hi, Irene, and good morning, everybody. I'm extremely excited to be a part of this great discussion. I think it's an important topic, not only for our Kansas City community, but also for our nation as a whole. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Dr. Hiba Heather is staff pediatrician at the Health Partnership Clinic and partner with Choice Physician Group. Welcome, Dr. Heather.
Hello, how are you guys? I'm trying to launch my video as well. Just give me a minute.
Okay. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on this panel. I'm honored to be part of a diverse community, and I'm honored to be part of the panel as well.
Thank you. Jennifer Lapka is founder and president of Rightfully Sown. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Irene. Thank you to the Kansas City Chamber and everyone in the audience. It's my great pleasure to be with you.
Great to have you. Said Renaldo Consuegra Salsa is executive plant-based chef at Pirate's Bone Burgers. Welcome, Said.
There you go. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I am so glad that all of you are here today, and I want you to feel comfortable about the conversation that we are going to have, because I want you to really share your stories as immigrants, as children of immigrants, as refugees, because what we know about Kansas City, those stories are like many other stories in Kansas City. And what we do know is that those stories can help us build on our welcoming plan. And we know that Kansas City is stronger when we all can contribute and succeed. So I'm going to ask all of you the same opening question, right? So we're going to start by hearing from all of you, but then I have really specific questions about really regarding your story, your industry, And I want you to share your answers, but what I also want you to think about is that if there is a question that I ask another panelist and you want to answer or you want to add or want to clarify or ask more of the panelists, let's do that together. The idea is that I want you to share your story with Kansas City. I want to get to know all of you better and more, and I want the audience to learn from you. So let's get right to it. The first question I'm going to ask all of you is, what does the word welcoming mean to you? What can Kansas City do to be more welcoming? Ramin, let's start with you.
Sure. Irene, two things come to mind when I think of the word welcoming, and that is to be accepting of others and to value others as people, right? And so I think that's so important to bring other people into your community and recognize the value that they can bring. And when I think about Kansas City, we've got so many great initiatives happening, but some notes I wrote down here is I think we've got to take the opportunity to continue to celebrate the successes that our immigrants have and share those stories throughout the community so that people are aware of them. And also talk about the contributions that immigrants make to our community more specifically so that the broader population can understand the value that brings to our Kansas City region.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Dr. Heather, what can you add or what does that mean to you when you think of welcoming?
Absolutely. So for me, welcoming is more like a behavior that projects comfort, acceptance, makes you feel happy, makes you feel amicable in your surroundings, in new environment, especially for immigrants who've lived almost a whole life and come to start from the beginning. They want to have that feeling. I would love to propagate and encourage welcoming behavior towards immigrants by show of inclusiveness in their cultures or celebrations, or asking about them, just asking, getting to know them. That makes them feel comfortable and welcomed.
Thank you, Doctor. Jennifer, how would you answer, what does it mean to you, the word welcoming, and how can we in Kansas City be a more welcoming community?
Welcoming is about accepting people exactly as they are, and to go a step further, to give them what they need to succeed in our community. Very specifically, I'm very grateful to the Chamber for pushing this initiative forward. I think it's something we have to see through. I would love to see Kansas City certified as a Welcoming America community.
Thank you. Saeed.
Hi. So I think everyone is correct. I think we should all do as been said. But also, I think we should take a little step forward and talk about the problems we do have within the community, so we don't just overshadow, and put it under the rug. I think we need to talk about the racism we have here in Kansas City and start getting more comfortable with different people. Because if we are just trying to be nice, we'll never get there. We need to really approach the subject and the one error we have and we've been doing, which is putting people in groups and being prejudiced or racist. We need to take all of that out of our system in order to be more welcoming to others.
Saeed, I think the country is experiencing exactly what you're talking about and there is such a thing as Kansas nice or, Kansas City nice. And I want us to be that, but I want us to have the vital conversations that get us to really talking about some of those deep rooted racism and systems that don't welcome. So you are absolutely correct. Not necessarily part of the plan, but it is part of what we need to do in order to deconstruct what has been developed in our community. So there are places and there are people that are talking about that same thing. Inclusion does not mean tokenism, and our world is better off when we begin to start seeing the diversity at the tables and the voices at the tables that can really make us strong as a community. And that's what you're here for. So we want to hear your stories because we can learn, I think, from what where you've come from, what makes you, have some of this energy and desire to make Kansas City great, but also really to help us develop some of this belonging and inclusiveness. So Jennifer, I'll start with you. What does your organization, Rightfully Sown, do? And also, what kind of work do you do with immigrants and refugees?
Yes. So in the last century, 95% of what Americans wore was made in America. And therefore, every city was known for manufacturing certain items. Kansas City was known for suits, coats, and dresses. That system in Kansas City and every garment district around the country was powered by skilled immigrants. Rightfully Sown exists to create a 21st century version of what happened in the last century with new technology, new people, new policies. We do that in the Crossroads. We have a seamstress training program, which is at the heart of Rightfully Sown. And 80% so far of the participants have been refugees. They've come from Mexico, from many different countries in Africa, the Middle East, and we train them and get them into jobs with manufacturers in Kansas City, retailers, and we also hire them ourselves. So that is how we work with immigrants and refugees.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. So Zaid, I'm going to quote from the New American Economy's brief on Kansas City that states that immigrants are 24.7% more likely to start a business. What made you decide to go into business for yourself? Why did you choose the restaurant business and why Kansas City?
I think we have to break down the groups of immigrants in the country so people can recognize the differences. We have a very diverse panel. We talked about it last time we met. I am a DACA recipient. Therefore, and before I was DACA, which means Deferred Action Against Childhood Arrival, which I came before the age of 15. Before I had DACA, I couldn't get any other job. I was undocumented. I couldn't work, so I had to build my own business. So it wasn't much of a choice, but a necessity that I had to take. And food was something that I'm just naturally good at. It wasn't my choice. I went to school for film and television, so it's just something that I felt I got a gift for it, so I'm just using it to the best of my advantage. Unfortunately, I didn't have the pleasure of choosing my career path.
Yeah, I think the important part of what you said in regard of distinguishing immigrants, refugees do fall under the umbrella. We do have those that are able to have work permits and those that are considered undocumented and don't have work permits, but are definitely workers and essential workers here in the community. So thank you for that. And we appreciate, because I raised my hand when you said food, because I too, I can't cook too well, but I definitely am a connoisseur of food. So thank you. Ramin, let's talk about a Newsweek article. There was a Newsweek article that said 45% of the companies of the US Fortune 500 were started by immigrants, or at least by children, also by children of immigrants. How did your experience as a child of an immigrant help shape your success of now being CEO of McGowan Gordon Construction?
Yeah, I would say it definitely had an impact on how I view things. And I'm a big believer that when big life events happen to you, especially at a young age or as you're growing up, they have an impact on how you view the world, you know? And I think about, let's talk about just immigrants in general, right? Usually they're either coming here because they want to create a better life for themselves, or they have to flee someplace where they've been, right? And so that action and that courage that it takes to make that first big step and say, hey, I'm going to leave where I'm comfortable and I'm going to go somewhere new and I'm going to start something new. I think there's a correlation there between the attributes that make great entrepreneurs, risk takers, willing to take that leap of faith and that courage, right? So a little bit about my story is maybe not your traditional quote unquote immigrant story, but I was born in Tehran, Iran in 1973, and I immigrated to the United States in 1980. So at the age of about 7.5. My father met my mother here in the United States. He was going to college in the 60s with his siblings. And my mother was a native, lifelong Kansas Cityan, have deep roots in Kansas City. I definitely consider Kansas City my home now. I've been here over 40 years. But so my mother moved back and they lived there. And my grandfather was a serial entrepreneur and started a bank. And my dad came back and was in the process of running the family business and had a chance to start some other businesses and was kind of a serial entrepreneur. And then the revolution happened in the country and he didn't have a choice, right? He everything that he and my grandfather had spent 40 to 50 years to build up, 80 to 90% of that was taken away in a matter of 2 or 3 years. And one of the proudest things that my father will tell me was the day he put my sister and my mother and I on a plane and got us out of Tehran and right during the revolution. And he had to stay back to try to, fight and keep his businesses. Eventually, he joined us here in Kansas City about 2 to 3 years later, and we rooted here in Prairie Village, Kansas, and he started a new company and just hit the ground running again. And he has told me stories as I've grown up about things that my grandfather had to do and how he had to start over. And I can tell you without a doubt, those things impacted me, and they rooted in me and how important it is to take charge of things and kind of control your own destiny. And I believe that that's some of the same attributes you see in that statistics that you quoted, Irene, and the Newsweek is that kind of take charge. You've got to make your own success happen because nobody else is going to do it for you.
We all know the story and know other stories of the shoulders of giants that we stand on and some of the struggles from past generations to either get here or the interest of why it's so important that we see this country as the Mecca of opportunity and valuing that, whether it's one generation back or 2 generations back, but then we add flavor of some of the issues that we've had in the past that not all of us are immigrants. So there is kind of the other story of when you think about African Americans, but it's still the opportunity that I think the value that past and current generations have to see in our communities. And in Kansas City, I'd like to say we see that, the generosity and the value we have. So Dr. Heather, let's get you in here. What made you decide to come to the United States? And do you feel that Kansas City is more welcoming now than when you came?
Thank you for that question. I came to United States, I would say, as a path in my destiny. A lot of you are familiar with arranged marriages. One of the ways that I came here was that, I got married and came to the United States. But bigger picture of life is that that's where I was destined to be in my life. Wherever I would have been, I would have followed what my father told me, bloom wherever you planted. Could have been the same place, Lahore, Pakistan, but it happened to be Kansas City. And that's what I've been doing. I always wanted to be a pediatrician, and that's where I took my journey towards. I feel when I came to US, the people were very welcoming, and the graph has gone up and down. I don't know why. And that is same that I hear from not just components of my community, but a lot of other communities as well, immigrant communities. And of course, now we know the racial debate is going on, racial aspect is going on from that too. There are days, there are years, there are months that are really good. And there are days when you just keep your struggle going on for a better future. So that's a positive thing that, there are many days, there are more days good than not, I would say. I feel loved here in the community. I have contributed myself to be part of the community, and my kids and my family see this as their permanent abode. So I'm glad that things are getting better, and we all strive to make it better. We're all part of it.
Right. It's great to call Kansas City home, and when it's welcoming, it's even better. So thank
Yes.
you all for sharing your, at least bits of your story. Jennifer, I'm going to go back to you and tie in what we're dealing with COVID. Some businesses pivoted from their main product or service to what we call personal protective equipment, or PPE. One of those businesses was actually Madison Flitch, that went from producing furniture to actually producing masks. They reached out to your organization, rightfully so. And how did that come about? Could you tell that story, and how did you help the business succeed?
Thank you for asking, Irene. So if, the pandemic is teaching us so many things, and one of those things is that sewing is essential. Also, domestic manufacturing and domestic supply chains are essential. And so when there was a shortage of PPE that was already being discussed in international news as early as January, businesses like Madison Flitch and Rightfully Sewn and many others responded to the call of shortage of PPE. For instance, Rightfully Sewn hired 13 seamstresses, additional seamstresses, to sew over 40,000 masks that we donated to Children's Mercy, St. Luke's, Special Olympics Kansas, and many others. Madison Flitch was one of 7 other businesses that reached out to Rightfully Sewn for skilled seamstresses because they knew what we do. We have seamstress training, we have seamstresses on staff that sew small batch production. So they reached out saying, we are pivoting, we're sewing masks. Can you help us find skilled seamstresses? So Farida, which she's one of our graduates from last year, she's from Afghanistan. She was and still is, to my knowledge, still working for Madison Flitch. So we're very pleased for the company that we were able to help in that way. And obviously very pleased for Farida because a sewing job really is any job for immigrant and refugee has generational positive impact on those families. That's how we were able to help.
So, Dr. Heather, I'm going to go back to you and going back to the New American Economy's brief on Kansas City. It states that 16.1% of immigrants have advanced degrees. And this could be for the entire panelists. I want you to think about this question, or the statistic and the question. Do you think that there is a misconception of who is immigrating to the United States today?
Thank you for that question, Irene. So, I agree that this number is a number that may not be quite accurate. But what we know, at least in Kansas City, top professionals are not just the top degrees. There are a lot of other professions that are, assimilating and immigrating from not just, I wouldn't name a certain region of the world, but, all immigrants from many parts of the world. Doctors, engineers, there are many people who are, they cannot get equivalency of their degrees back home. So they're coming here and doing even blue collar work, or downgrading themselves to, just start a life. So it's hard to say. I would say this number is higher up, but I know that these numbers just represent just a little part of the community.
Good.
That's what
Anyone else like to dab into that question or have thoughts about that question? We have a misconception that many of the labor, it tends to be towards immigrant and refugee populations, but we know that there are a lot of positions that immigrants hold that are with these advanced degrees, or also with professional companies. If no one else has any other thoughts, I'm going to go to Ramin and talk about the construction business, for example. Construction relies on the work of immigrants. They play a significant role, not just in labor, but in engineering and many other facets of construction. So why are immigrants good for the construction industry?
Great question. And they're vitally important. And I'll share some statistics here with you all, is that almost 28% of all the workers in our industry, and I think one misconception is that the immigrant workers are just the trades and the field people, and that's not necessarily the case. But 28% of our industry is made up of immigrant workers, and our workforce has had a shortage for well over a decade, not just in the field, but also managerial and supervisorial positions. And there's going to be an executive position void in our industry as well, we believe, moving forward. So I'm certain that there's still a great level of opportunity for attracting even more immigrants into the construction industry. And why it's so important is the shortage that we have in our workforce has a real economic impact on not just our industry, right? From an industry perspective, construction prices go up, schedules get disrupted, the ability to finish projects on time with a shortage of labor can be an issue. And eventually, all those costs and impacts trickle down to everybody in the community through housing prices, through construction cost prices for companies and businesses. So there's definitely an economic need of why we need to embrace even more immigrants into the construction industry. And once we're able to do that, that tide will rise all of us in the community.
Thank you. So Zaid, I'm going to go back to a previous comment you made in regard to being what we call documented. As a dreamer, and knowing kind of what, or maybe not knowing, but what we potentially could see with the new administration and the future of the program, what improvements would you like to see with the DACA program? In other words, what do we really want for those that have the similar status that you have? And what would you like to see for the future?
Yeah, I'll start off really quick by the previous statement and question that you raised about, groups of immigrants. And I think we have to give every immigrant a chance to grow and see what feels like. We shouldn't put a stereotype on every immigrant, because here I am, and then here's all these other people in this panel who have are either immigrants yeah, so we're all immigrants at this point in this panel, so we have to see that and respect it and accept it, that there are chances if you give immigrants a chance that we'll take it and we'll better ourselves or try to better ourselves, because obviously we came here for a reason. Now, to this question, what I would want to see about the DACA program would be to destroy it. I'd love for DACA to be destroyed and have a straight way, like a straight pathway to citizenship, because that's what we've been fighting for 10 plus years. I've been to Washington, D.C. Close to 5 times within the past 2 years, and I have to shut down or I have to leave the full business behind because I have to go out and do all this work, this activist work at the Capitol. So I would like DACA to be extinguished and then a pathway to citizenship.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we can begin to think about is comprehensive immigration reform, which means that we're talking about DACA, we're talking about adults, we're talking about the whole spectrum of those that are here and contributing and doing some great things, but do not have a line to stand in or a pathway to citizenship. I think it's going to be a fight that we have to. And right now, the piecemealing and one over the other DACA is always held as probably one of the easiest bipartisan opportunities. But it will. I think it's time, and it's time to really begin to say we need it, and we need bipartisanship and Congress to actually get it done. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. And we know for our documented community that this program has been very important to work in school, but also much more needed for parents and others in the family that do not have this opportunity. So thank you for that.
Correct. I just want to correct you on one thing, and that way people don't assume that there is a line. That's something that we see everywhere. Line. There is no line. Right. There's no line. And yes, I have seen a lawyer throughout my 20 plus years here in the States, and no, I cannot get citizenship in any way, shape, or form. So we do need to fix this issue.
Very good point. I often say that if there is a line to stand in, we would be in it. But because really there's no opportunity for pathway, many just are again doing great things, but do not have that piece of paper or that ability to get in line. So thank you for that. Dr. Heather, let's go back to the coronavirus, something that's probably on all of our minds. The coronavirus has exposed how much we rely on the contributions of immigrants, many of them now being essential workers in healthcare, in support staff, in blue collar workers. So the new essential worker is important. At the same time, people of color are at higher rates of contracting and also dying of this virus. What are you seeing, and what kinds of things should we be doing or thinking about to deal with this inequity?
Thank you for the question again. Yes, unfortunately, there is a health bias. There is a health disparity which is existent today in our healthcare industry. And across the board, thankfully it is acknowledged. It's not like, no, it doesn't exist. Right. Not like, no, it's your subjective feeling. No, there is data to back it up. We are seeing healthcare disparities in this arena as well. Unfortunately, hospitalizations probably may get delayed. I haven't seen in my personal pediatric population as of yet, but so I won't say that, thankfully children are not getting as sick with COVID, as adults, but I know parents of children who belong to that group, who may experience health disparities, are a victim of that, whether they're here within Kansas City or across the nation.
Well, we definitely know that COVID didn't cause the health disparities. It just caused the spotlight for us to definitely see those, not just in our community, but throughout this country. So I really do thank you for what you do, and appreciate the work that our healthcare professionals are doing to help us try to combat and get this under control. Saeed, I'm going to go back to you because
I will add one more comment. I'm sorry. With the corona, though, even though corona itself does not discriminate, healthcare disparity, but unfortunately, the comorbid conditions in that group already exist to the level that because of healthcare disparities, that they're hit harder with coronavirus if they get it.
Yes.
So that's an eye-opener, hopefully, for our community.
All of us, correct. Thank you for that. Zaid, I'm going to stay on COVID, and I'm going to ask you to talk. We know about the countless stories of small businesses that have been affected by COVID-19, particularly minority-owned businesses. So it's not just the fact of us getting the disease more, but just the fact that small businesses were affected. What's been your experience, and how are you struggling? Are you maintaining during this COVID?
Well, I think we have to talk about how largely or how small the minority groups are, at least here in Kansas City. So therefore, if we take that into account, we have to acknowledge that our clientele will be a lot smaller than a prestigious non-minority owned business. So yeah, it's been rough, honestly. It's been a rough patch. We've been trying to do the best that we can. I have a really great small team right now. We went from a very large team to just 4 employees. We don't let anyone inside our establishment for, since COVID started. So it's been a rough patch, but we're hoping that we can kind of glide along and make it through. Maybe the spring and summer, something will change. We put in too much work and effort into this, so it would be a really big shame if we weren't able to make it out of COVID.
As a minority-owned business, did you see a lot of support or help from federal government, local community that assisted you either financially or in any way to help support what you're doing?
I think we saw a lot of support from the local people, just our clientele. And we only had 6 months to build that clientele because unfortunately we opened September of last year. So we didn't have a lot of time. That's the other downside to us, that there was just a very short amount of time for us to get clientele in. We did get help from the government. We did get a loan, a PPE loan, and that kind of vanished really quick. I don't think we had enough information about COVID as a restaurant, as a business, as people. So for me, that was probably the biggest downside, that we didn't know enough for us to make any decisions on how to act and go about this virus and pandemic.
Yeah, I think I don't know how we're getting through this, but with the generosity of Kansas City, with like you said, the help of your clientele and working it through, we appreciate everything that everyone's doing to get through this. Ramin, I'm going to go back to you, and I think I asked you a question before about why are immigrants good for the industry? The other question that we had was just kind of the reverse. why is the industry good for immigrants? When we talk about, those levels of immigrant participation, or at least professions, how would you answer that?
Yeah, I think the fundamental aspects of it, there are more jobs available than there are people to fill those positions, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing, a statistic a lot of people may or may not know, is the average hourly wage of a construction worker is 10% higher than all other non-farm private payroll jobs. So it is a great way, and I'm a little biased. I love this industry. I love everything about it, but it's a great way to make a living, right? You have an opportunity to come in and build a trade and build a skill. And over time, you can move into managerial and supervisorial positions. And these, the barriers to entry to our industry are really not that high, right? If an immigrant comes into the country and they need to hit the ground running and want to get integrated in the workforce, they don't necessarily need to go immediately and get a 4-year degree to get a job. They can come in and get in at the ground floor in a specific trade. And many times, once they master that trade, their wages and salaries on average are higher than even 4-year degreed individuals. But also, if they get in with a good company, there's lots of great opportunities for continuing education. The collaboration between the field and the office and that type of environment in the construction industry is so unique, where you've got different people with different backgrounds and different skills come together to solve the problem to get the project built. And the last thing I'll say about that is there is a strong track record in our industry of immigrants who come in, learn a skill, learn a trade, and then move on to start their own business, right? And that is so critical, whether it's a concrete company or a painting business. Once you have that trade and that skill, nobody can take that away from you, and you become more marketable.
I think you hit on one of the things that's really important as in our work with the community is that I love hearing employers talk about how hardworking immigrants are. But I think one of the things that I love are the stories that talk about how smart workers they are. So we are talking about how do we begin to really elevate, and we know that there are trades that are always going to be important and lack for the bodies to be filled. So what we encourage, not only for those that we support, is we want you to be hard workers, but we definitely want you to be smart workers and to benefit and look at the benefits and grow and think about entrepreneurship. So thank you for that. We really do appreciate hearing employers that think that way, and how do we elevate workers and educate workers. Jennifer, before we get to the audience questions, talk about, or can you actually describe a case study that illustrates the positive potential of immigrants and refugees in our community, like we were just discussing?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Irene. And to echo what Ramin says, sewing is a trade that you can get into with our seamstress training program, for instance, is 10 weeks. So they can move very quickly through training into a job. So I will speak about Lillian Lamani, who graduated our 2017 pilot program. And I know she wouldn't mind me talking about her because she's done wonderful press pieces. She's talked very openly about her experience in Congo. I encourage you to Google her and the Kansas City Star piece that they put out during the pandemic. She is an amazing person. She was taking our class in the mornings. She was learning how to drive in the afternoons to take her driver's test. She was teaching other Congolese individuals how to speak English. She was taking care of 10 children and a husband at home. Just an enormous amount of energy, tenacity, and really, rightfully so, was just a tiny blip in her trajectory. She could do anything she puts her mind to. So she and her family came to this country through Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas, which is a wonderful resource, and took our program. She moved into a sewing position with Aero Fabricare Services on Troost, and she's gone on to start her own business. During the pandemic, she also pivoted to PPE production, and she reached out to us to hire 3 full-time seamstresses. So it's a perfect example of how, not all acorns turn into oak trees, as they say, and she is turning into an oak tree. She won the AltCap Scholarship Award last year. Rightfully so, had won it just the year previous to that. I'm just excited to see what's next for her. Her business is called African Designs by Lillian, and if you support her, you're obviously supporting her family and the whole idea of immigrants and refugees.
Thank you for sharing that. I will definitely look that up. I hope the audience does too. To support local businesses is also very important, and our community definitely benefits from that. Thank you for sharing that. So I have a question, and we're going to start answer. I'm going to move into answering audience questions because there are a few, and I want to at least acknowledge, thank you for participating for those watching. It's going to go back to a resource, what you just mentioned, Jennifer. What resources have you found that help you connect immigrants to the community? What are some good resources in, besides El Centro? No. What are some good resources that you have either encountered yourself or that you've been able to connect? We just share those with the audience.
Well, in addition to Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas, also Jewish Vocational Service, both are extraordinary nonprofit service organizations, very organized, very caring teams, and high outcomes, and they just care. They provide so many wonderful services to immigrants and refugees.
Yeah, they are the 2 biggest that actually resettle refugees here in our community. So if you have not, do not have them on speed dial, please know that they are a great resource for our community, and most definitely as a resettlement to our refugees. Anyone else either encountered or know your go-to?
So Irene, for refugees, there's another organization you're probably aware of, Kansas City for Refugees, founded by Dr. Sophia Khan. Local mosques, for a group of communities that come from Southeast Asia, Muslim countries. They're also the social hub and go-to resources. But for refugees in particular, Kansas City for Refugees is a good resource.
So here's, anyone else have any thoughts? I don't want to interrupt. Here's one that might be more specific to the doctor, but anyone could answer this question. Someone asked, can you address the disparities of mental health in diverse populations? How has COVID impacted the access to whole health care and alternative and mental health care?
Can I start that to
Yes,
answer that?
you can. I think
Okay.
we all have, respectfully, we've all are dealing with mental health issues with COVID, but from a professional standpoint, please help lead this.
That's a very heartbreaking question to begin with, because mental health is already the tip of the iceberg and very underfunded in US. But the COVID has just turned it around. I can speak of, adolescent and pediatric population, the whole change, whole fear, whole anxiety, and the adjustment issues that they're having with just mode of learning, school in, school out, from personal stories to stories of my children in my practice, they're having a tough time. Anxiety has gone up. Underlying mental health issues are, exacerbated, flared up. Parents are on their edge. Many of them have lost jobs, and not just that. I've also personally known patients who've, people who've committed suicide. So I would encourage parents to look out for any subtle changes or bigger changes in their child behavior, mood. Don't hesitate to seek attention early on. Take them to their regular doctor, talk to them. They need your attention. They need your guidance. They need whatever clarity you have, share with them. Don't leave them in limbo. Address their concerns. Don't take it lightly. We're all gonna get through it. I know it's a long road. We ourselves don't know the right answer when it's gonna end, not very soon. But we'll be past it as a humanity. We will, inshallah.
Thank you, Doctor. Anyone else want to even try to? I have one from the audience that is, I think, great for all of you. Talk about your personal stories of what's been difficult or obstacles as an immigrant and what has been welcoming. So one or two quick what has been kind of obstacles and what helped you to just feel welcomed and feel belonged to Kansas City?
I'll go first there. I mean, for me, it was at a very young age, right? So I've always, to be very candid, always felt very welcomed to Kansas City, and I still do, and I love this town and everything about it. But for my personal story, and I know there's a lot of people with my background and my story that came to the United States during that time of a revolution. The biggest challenge was, right, your family got split up, and it wasn't by choice and it wasn't by intentional. But when I mentioned to my father, he put my sister, my mother, and I on a plane and said, pick where you want to live. And we came to Kansas City because this was hometown for my mother. And then growing up for 3 or 4 years while my dad's flying back and forth from one country to the other, trying to hold everything together, that absolutely had an impact on me, right? And that was those were challenging times. And I think about now how blessed my children are because he made that sacrifice to do that. And but those struggles, I think, impact people's futures, right? They impact how you look at things down the road.
Yes, thank you. Who else would like to respond to that question? What have been some of your challenge or obstacles and some of your welcoming moments in being in Kansas City?
I can go on that.
Oh, no, go ahead. Please go ahead, and then I'll.
No, doctor.
No, please go ahead, Zai.
All right. And so I would say some of the struggles have been that I, on the other hand, had the opposite effect as some people. I had a very negative way of growing up here in the States, especially here in Kansas. I was always told, doors shut in pretty much in every avenue that I looked to. So that was hard for me, knowing that it was going to be a struggle for the rest of my life until I was able to get citizenship. So that's been the hardship. Now, the good thing, or the welcoming part, has been the traits. All the newspapers, all the news stations, all the magazines that have opened the door for me and my business to grow. Because without the trades, I wouldn't have made it this far, to be honest.
And trades in the language that help you build community is language.
Yeah. It gives you, for me, it almost gave me a credibility. So without those trades, I don't think we would have gotten here just by me doing what I do. If we didn't get so much attention and so much welcoming, from the trades, from the magazines, from the news stations, from the radio stations, I don't think we'd be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Heather.
Yeah, so the old saying, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So it was the life for me when I came here. My only dream was to become and practice as a pediatrician again, and it was a very uphill battle. I couldn't see that happening, but I kept remembering, you do not see obstacles in life if you do not take your eyes off your goal. So keep that target on, and then don't be shy or fearful to reinvent yourself or just learn along the way. Um, a lot of positive things happen. A lot of people helped me along the way. And struggle is every day, no matter where you are, whether you are immigrant or not. So take that sticker out of your mind and heart. But fine, if struggle comes along the way as an immigrant, a little bit more than others, that's fine. Take it, embrace it, and show that you can do it. And each one of us is capable of doing it.
So, Ramin, I have one specifically for you. Talk about how McGowan Gordon makes their company welcoming to their immigrant and refugee employees.
Oh, wow. Lots of ways, right? I think from a strategy and from a planning standpoint, that kind of falls under our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. But we partner with different organizations around town, schools, community colleges, and ways to bring people into our industry. And one of the things we're probably the most proud of, Irene, as a company is how we treat our associates once they become what we call part of the McGowan Gordon family, right? It's for 16 years in a row, we've been recognized as one of the best places to work in Kansas City, and Fortune magazine put us in the top 100 in the country this year and last year. So it's how you treat people. It's how you make them feel that whether they've been at the company for one day or 15 years, they're part of the family and they have a say and they have a stake in the success of the company. And we really take that to heart. It's a big deal to us how we treat our associates, and especially the immigrant population and diverse population as well.
You and Jennifer, I apologize. The last question, did you have anything for the last question that I asked about obstacles in welcoming moments that you might have had personally?
No, thank you. Nothing to add there.
Okay, all right. I neglected to go back to you and I apologize. Okay, I have one, speaking of, and Jennifer, I don't know if you want to start this. What do you think are the best strategies for supporting organizations that support refugees like JVS and Catholic Charities? What should we be doing more of, or how do we support those organizations knowing that the work that they're doing really are welcoming and helping build or helping refugees become part of our community?
Yes. Well, monetary donations, I think, will be the most beneficial to them right now. So if you donate to JVS online, to Catholic Charities in Northeast Kansas online, that would be absolutely wonderful and welcome from them. They obviously fundraise. I think they do events with nonprofits not being able to host fundraising events right now. That's really cutting into revenue. They're probably not able to take volunteers as many as they have in the past. So really driving that revenue to them right now is very important. And also, if you look at the past administration, which they made deep cuts in the amount of refugees let into this country. That means that organizations like that, which receive governmental support monetarily, in direct relation to the number of refugees that they resettle, you can imagine how much that cut into their bottom line. So as a grassroots effort, we as a community should and have and continue to do so, monetarily support those organizations in their work.
Anyone else how do you support, how can we better support organizations that are specifically working with immigrants and refugees in our community? So we're going to actually, I'm going to ask that you think about this, and it goes back to Jennifer's point in regard to the numbers that have dropped for refugees to come into the United States. So this will be our last audience question. Any or all of you are more than welcome. So we, as Jennifer alluded to, we have seen nationwide drop in refugee numbers entering the United States. What can we do actually to encourage not just grassroots, as Jennifer was talking about, but local and federal governments to lift their restrictions on refugee and immigrants? What would you say to that? What can we do at the federal or local level to fight back on some of what we're seeing to limit?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a hot potato question, huh?
It is a hot potato.
I think
some of what we talked about already has been kind of hot potato, but we'll dive into this one. It was an audience question, and I'm willing.
Just to start from the very top, right? I think the voters in the United States have spoken, and you're going to see a different type of stance that the federal government's going to take. And I don't think anybody can debate that. And that's not just stating a fact that I believe is true, and that is that the image that we're going to have globally is going to change, and how other countries view the United States is going to be different in the next 4 years and maybe how it has been in the last 4 years. And I think it has to start from the top. If we're going to be a country that is going to welcome immigrants back into our country and welcome diverse backgrounds, and I think it even got to a point where it was affecting people within our country that had diverse backgrounds that were probably born here and were citizens here. So I think we're going to see a change going forward, and that's about all I'll say on that.
There you go. I understand completely. Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, I have. Oh, did I cut somebody else again?
No, go ahead.
So I'm gonna
put in
a different. Yeah, I'm gonna put in a different idea. I think we have to start from the bottom. I think we have to start from the bottom with ourselves, our neighbors, and what ways we can help is to vote. I mean, vote the right way, vote for the right person, call your electives, hear your local electives, call your electives in Washington, let them know how you feel about it. And that's pretty much what I've been doing with all these nonprofits and activist groups, is just making sure that we call and we let everyone know the way this country should steer. And it's up to us. It's not to the government. The government isn't going to do anything that doesn't have money behind it, because that's the way we run a country. So it's a lot of weight on us, but the benefit is so grand if we make it work.
So I'm going to thank you again for your time, and we appreciate it. If you look at the welcoming plan, we talk about civic engagement, we talk about coordination and collaboration, and that is a welcoming plan that I think we can all say is important for Kansas City. So thank you for all that you do in your time. Audience members, questions were wonderful. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them, but we appreciate it, and we'll turn it back to the program. Thank you all.
Thank you for having us.
Please welcome President and CEO of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, Joe Reardon.
Thank you so much to our speakers and to our panel. As we wrap up, I wanted to bring the Welcoming KC initiative back into focus and invite you to read the plan in its entirety. In fact, a copy is being emailed to you as we speak. The work of the steering committee has been to identify the needs and opportunities for our community. The Chamber and all of our partners are deeply committed to utilizing a number of different strategies to meet the goals of the plan. As you read through the plan, you'll notice that some of the goals will take a bit of time to achieve, but also that there are many places where we have a fantastic start. Places where community groups, the chamber, government, and businesses are already working together to create a more welcoming community for all. Those efforts include supporting economic development systems that are prepared to leverage new and existing talent, nurturing a pipeline that prepares and supports students, especially international students, for the workforce through all areas of education. Collaborations that facilitate access to essential services, including healthcare, transportation, housing, legal assistance, places of worship, and government services. These critical goals cannot be met without a continued commitment from all of us. Please stay tuned for the many opportunities to get involved in the Welcoming KC initiative. As you've seen today, the economic and social benefits of being a welcoming community are clear, and its warm and hospitable spirit that will keep Kansas City a healthy and vibrant community for all. Thank you so much for joining us today.